This is Fat2Fierce. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. Join me on this empowering adventure towards a healthier relationship with food, body, and self, one delicious bite at a time. Welcome to the Confidence Chronicles. I'm your host, Amy English. So today I'm just going to talk about what's on my heart because there is something that I want to share, and I want to share it because I think it's going to be helpful, especially for those like myself who are interested in overall health, okay? Not just weight loss. And I say that because, I don't know about you, but, years and years of messaging, decades of messaging had me thinking that my overall health was defined by a number on the scale. I don't know, maybe you can relate to that as well. And what I've learned over the last decade is that health is about so much more than just weight. And I say that because when I think back on all the different weight loss attempts that I've gone through, and there's just dozens upon dozens of things, programs that I've done, that I've participated in, those including food and exercise and even medication in some cases. And while I was participating in all of these different programs, since the tender age of 10 or 11, it really did a number on my body. It did a number on my metabolism. And so here I am today at age 50, and my metabolism is definitely, definitely wonky. It's something that I'm working on right now with a dietitian, but it got me thinking that, first of all, I know I'm not the only person in this world who has been in this type of situation, right? Or has this type of history, right? There's a lot of us. And it makes me think how the messaging in our weight obsessed society, I really our weight loss obsessed society, really focuses only on one thing, and that is the number on the scale. Like if you look at most messaging out there, it's all about, how much weight you're losing. And I was part of that. I was in that. Even when I was a Beachbody coach, right? Like that was the focus. How much weight am I losing? What do I weigh? What size am I wearing? Like what size jeans can I get into, right? There was an excitement around being able to try on a smaller size of jeans and have them fit, like, woohoo, right? Like that meant something. And it's interesting when I think back on that experience, on those experiences. And because it was so focused on the weight, the external view, right? There was really no consideration into what was happening inside my body. Like I was going to say behind the scenes, right? But inside my body, like what was going on? How was all of that consistent weight loss, consistent dieting, what was it doing to my body? What was it doing to my metabolism? What was it doing to my organs? What was happening inside? And not only just the dieting, but the foods I was eating. I've been on programs that supplied the food, okay, filled with chemicals, not quality foods, right? Low quality foods. And when I think about this, when there's such an obsession with the number alone and the size alone, the weights alone, there's not a lot of consideration on what's happening inside. And I just determined at some point that I didn't want to stay in that rat race. Like I didn't want to stay on that hamster wheel. I didn't want to stay on that roller coaster, whatever you want to call it, merry-go-round, what have you, of obsessive dieting because something in me knew that it wasn't helpful anymore. And, I started this particular journey, this part of my journey 10 years ago when I decided I wanted to focus on my relationship with food, right? Because similar to what I'm talking about here is, I would go on these diets, but then as soon as the diet would end, I'd go back to all my old eating habits where like I couldn't wait for this plan to end so I could finally have pizza, or I couldn't wait for this plan to end so I could finally eat chocolate and have a cheeseburger and fries, and like couldn't wait to get all my old favorite foods back, right, in rotation after this diet ended and after I lost this weight. And I just started to realize that just wasn't that wasn't a helpful approach, right? Restricting myself for so long only so that I could go back to my old eating habits. And I mean, I'm not even talking about stress eating, right? Like which you know by now if you've listened to any of the previous 60 episodes on this podcast adventure, that stress eating was something that I struggled with for a really long time, along with other forms of emotional eating and binge eating and just general overeating. And I don't mean to make overeating sound like general, but because a lot of us overeat and it definitely can be an issue. But I'm not even talking about that, because that was a very real thing that was happening too. Right? Not only did I want to go back to eating all those foods that I was missing when I was on the quote unquote diet, I was also participating in some very unhealthy and unhelpful, harmful, really, eating behaviors. And it just struck me at some point that, like, why isn't any of this being addressed? It's like, we were all so focused, and I say we as a general society, we were all so focused on getting to some magical number, some magical weight, or some magical size without really considering the long-term implications of what we were doing while on those plans and while off those plans. And so today I kind of wanted to talk about that. This is going to be very interesting because it's going to be more conversational, I guess, with me talking to myself right now until this goes, until this gets uploaded. But it struck me because, I've recognized in real time, present day, that I've gotten caught up in some of the old thinking. And what I mean by that is I found myself searching for something to help me remove my holiday pounds. As I've mentioned in some of the previous episodes, I gained weight during the holidays, the end of 2024, and it is now, mid-March 2025, and those holiday pounds have not left. And I mentioned, I think it was last week in episode 60, I mentioned that I'm working with a dietitian. I'm also using the Lumen, the little device you breathe in and out of to determine your metabolic flexibility. I'm exercising more. I'm really doing some different things to help with my overall health, not just my weight. But that said, I found myself over the last several days getting caught in the old thinking trap of like, I really got to take this weight off. I really got to take these pounds off. Right. And it got me frustrated. And I found myself sharing my email address with all these different programs that were showing up on my Facebook feed, I don't even know the names of them at this point, but like, this program and that program and all these different things you can try and do to shed these unwanted pounds, especially, you're in perimenopause now. Okay. Yeah. Like this will help with that. And I had to stop myself yesterday, as a matter of fact. I stopped myself and I was like, Amy, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I think this is important to bring up because hi, I'm a life coach. I'm a life coach who helps people end overcome emotional eating, like stress eating, binge eating, and overeating, right? I help people form a healthy relationship with food and change their eating habits and patterns, right? I also help people heal the relationship with their body and have a more positive body image, feel more comfortable in their skin, right? And I help people work towards whatever goals they decide they want to work on by feeling better about themselves and feeling better about food, right? This is what I do. And I have a ton of tools at my disposal, things that I have learned over the years as part of my training and education and continued education. And so I've got a whole toolbox. I know how to coach myself. It's one of the things they teach us in life coach training. I was my very first client, okay? I know how to coach myself. And even with all those tools at my disposal, and even with the knowledge, I still get sucked in to this messaging. And so I thought it was important to bring this to the podcast because if this is happening to me, someone who has been, kind of working on this for a long time, who also has the tools at her disposal, I guarantee this is happening for other people. So I thought maybe by sharing my experience and what kind of transpired and how I'm navigating through it, I thought maybe it would be helpful for those of you who are listening. And so it really boils down to recognizing the messaging. Okay? So recognizing the messaging that we've really kind of been steeped in for most of our lives. So, I think I've shared before, I'm 50, right? So I grew up in the 80s when it was really important to be super thin and I wasn't. And so I grew up in diet culture very heavily. I grew up really believing that there was something wrong with my body, that my body wasn't acceptable, that I needed to lose weight. And so I lived, the majority of my life kind of in this tug of war with myself because on one side, I really wanted to be thin because I wanted to be accepted and I wanted, to be liked and all that other stuff. So I thought that the magic answer was to be thin. But on the flip side of that was kind of like the little rebel in me who was like, no, screw you. I want to be me. I want to be liked for me. I like screw your rules. So there was kind of like always this tug of war going on between these two very strong parts of me, which only led to a lot of frustration. And then you sprinkle in emotional eating and just overall negative body image into all of that, and you can probably, like, if you've experienced this too, it can kind of feel like this tangled ball of yarn, this like tangled web of like, where do we go from here, right? And so I've done a lot of work on myself to detangle that, and that's really what I do in coaching with people, whether it's through the self-study program or working one-on-one with people in my coaching program. And the one-on-one work is my favorite because nothing against the self-study program. It's super powerful and it definitely equips you with tools that you can have at your disposal to work on this stuff. But the one-on-one coaching just takes it a step deeper because we really get to work on your specific web, if you will, right? And on detangling that, and to just feel better about yourself and all this other stuff. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here, but I really do love working with people one-on-one. But where was I going with it? See, I lost my place now. Anyway, so even with all these tools at my disposal, I do notice that I still get sucked in to the line of thinking that I grew up in, right? That I was steeped in, that a lot of us have been steeped in. And that is this idea that your overall health is defined by this number, by this weight, by this number on the scale, right? And what I need to remind myself in the times when this does happen, first of all, let me take a step back for just a second, because where I was going with this was like, even as a life coach, someone who is kind of in this world and works with people on feeling better about themselves and kind of breaking out of the toxic diet mentality and healing your relationship with food and your body and all that stuff. Even as someone who has been involved in this for, gosh, a decade now, the old messaging can still creep in, and it can be strong. And so, yeah, so I want to just kind of share a little bit about what's been happening, why it's been happening, and how I'm navigating to steer myself in a different direction, okay? One that feels better. Because at the end of the day, that's what all of this is for. We are here living this life, and the whole idea is to have a good experience, to feel good about ourselves, to live a life that we want to live, to enjoy ourselves, to find joy, right? To experience joy. I mean, yes, are there going to be times of sadness and hardship and things like that? Are we going to have experiences that bring us to our knees in a lot of cases? Of course, it's kind of all part of it. But at the same time, we don't have to stay in that all the time. It is important to sprinkle in positive and experience more joy and all that other stuff. And I mean, I'll say this, I give so much credit to coaching for me living the life I'm living now. That's not to say, I'm immune from negative circumstances and quote unquote bad things happening. No, things happen all the time. But what coaching does is helps you deal with those things in a more productive way, and in a better way, in a way where you can, I don't want to say overcome easier, but like not staying down, I guess. So I've talked before about the island of despair and the island of possibility, right? It's like I know what it feels like to be on that island of despair for a really long time and just constantly feel bad about myself and feel bad about everything going on in my life, and all that does is just continue to like regurgitate the same thing. You want to be able to see the possibility of other things happening, so that, not to say that bad things aren't going to happen or there aren't going to be negative things that happen, but so that you can balance it out, right? With more joyful stuff, with the good stuff. Our brains so easily focus on what's not working and what's not going well and all the ways we screw up and mess up and all this other stuff. It's like, listen, it's real easy for me to go there, but it's not a place I want to stay, because it's not helpful and it'll just keep the cycle going. So it's really important and helpful, I believe, to be able to have another perspective to balance that out, is what I'm trying to say here. And I went off on a real wild tangent there. But that also does speak to this whole weight loss piece, right? The whole weight loss industry, because it's like the weight loss industry with all of its, its multi-billion-dollar messaging, keeps us on the island of despair, feeling a certain way about ourselves, thinking that someone else must have the answer or the magic piece or whatever, that we can't possibly know what we're doing on our own. And we certainly can't like ourselves while we're at this particular weight. And I just find that incredibly frustrating. But with that said, I certainly did jump into it with both feet earlier this week. All right, let me just break down what's happened. So, because I just feel myself going into all kinds of tangents today on this. So, I've shared before in previous episodes that I gained weight at the end of last year over the holidays, and those pounds have not left. And Yes, I've hired a dietitian who I'm working with. I'm using the little Lumen device to help improve my metabolic flexibility. I'm exercising more, all these wonderful things, right? But I found myself so incredibly frustrated that these pounds were not going away. And so there I'm scrolling on social media and I'm seeing all these advertisements for all these different things that you can do for weight loss. And so I started like investigating them and looking into them and realizing it's like nonstop. There's like so much out there. And then once you click on one, more keep coming because that's how the algorithm works, right? And I even found myself thinking, oh, maybe I should try another type of medication. And I just had to stop myself. I had to stop myself and say, whoa, Amy, what are you doing? And I could see it very clearly. I was getting sucked in to the messaging. I was getting sucked into the idea. And I even started panicking a little bit because I was like, if you don't get these pounds off, what? What's going to happen if I don't get these pounds off? I had to catch myself and see what was happening in the moment and see that I was really causing myself unnecessary panic with my thinking. And this thinking stems from the messaging that we've all been steeped in over the years, over the decades. And that messaging is that, oh no, we're at this weight. What does this mean about our health? And I think there are so many other factors to consider when it comes to overall health. Like, absolutely, sure, weight can be a piece of it, but it's not the same for everybody. Listen, my grandmother lived till she was 92 years old. She was heavy her entire life. And she was relatively healthy her entire life up until her last few years when she had dementia. Aside from that, I don't ever remember her having any kind of major issue. A few things over the years, but nothing crazy. And she did live her entire life on a diet. I might have mentioned, I don't remember if I mentioned this on a previous podcast episode, but when she passed away, one of my strongest memories of her was focusing on calories. Calories, calories, she used to always say. And it just really struck me like that was my strongest memory of my grandmother, was being on a diet. Wow. Right? Okay. So anyway, my point in all of this that I'm sharing, I think, is that it is really easy to get swept up in the messaging that we're not healthy if we're not at some ideal number. And while I understand that weight can absolutely lead to certain things for certain, not everybody's the same. Every human body is different. Some people can carry extra weight and be healthy their entire lives and never have an issue. Others cannot. So each individual journey is going to be different, right? They're not the same. But what we tend to do as a society is assume that every person who carries extra weight, so every person who is overweight or underweight, isn't healthy. And that is just some messed up messaging that all of us have bought into, right? Myself included. I can see where I have. So I just think it's important to recognize the role that messaging plays in your journey. And also, to recognize that no matter what you're doing for yourself or what you're working on, or how well versed you think you are at certain things, sometimes that old messaging will creep in and will try to sweep you up with the tide. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I had to, I was grateful to be able to pause. Again, this is another area where the pause is super helpful. But I'm grateful I was able to pause and check in with myself and be like, whoa, what's happening right now? What is happening, Amy? Why are you like giving your email address to all these different programs on how to lose weight? What are you doing? Stop for a second. Take a breath. Why are we doing this right now? And I could very clearly see it's because in my mind, I'm telling myself that this is taking too long. I should have had these pounds gone by now. It's the middle of March. These pounds should be gone. Spring is coming. My clothes from last year are going to be snug. This has to go faster. This isn't going fast enough. And I started getting swept up in that until it just kind of started getting stronger and stronger and stronger. It feels a little bit like a whirlpool. We had a pool growing up, and my sister and I used to make whirlpools all the time. Like, we had an above ground pool, and you go round and round and round till the current becomes so strong, it just kind of sweeps you away. And that's exactly what happened to me this week as I was thinking about this. I got swept up in the idea that this is taking too long. I almost started panicking, like, this is impacting my health. Oh my goodness, these pounds that I've gained. And I just had to stop myself, take a breath, and remind myself, Amy, you are working with a dietitian right now. Y'all are working on this, and a lot of the focus with the dietitian has been on healing my gut. And it's been focusing on quality of food, paying very close attention to ingredients. Because guess what? All those chemicals that we're eating, listen, I know there's chemicals in everything. But when you're eating a lot of processed food with a lot of chemicals, all that is impacting what's happening inside. And it's always interesting to me because I would blindly follow diets and meal plans in the past, especially ones that recommended eating, specific things without giving any thought as to the quality of the food that said program was promoting or providing, right? A lot of that stuff is full of crap. And so working with a dietitian has been a real eye-opening experience to to really pay close attention to the quality of food that I'm putting in my body. Did I switch everything out? No, because quite honestly, food is expensive right now. And so I'm focusing on changing out a little bit at a time. But I did change the protein shakes that I drink, because I love to put protein shakes in my coffee. I do that every morning. And I did switch those out based on her recommendation and upon carefully reviewing the ingredient labels, because I realized the one I was drinking was full of junk. And so anyway, I think that when we consider what we're putting into our body, like, that almost becomes something we don't think about because we're just so focused on what the scale's doing. We're so focused on losing weight that we're not even considering the quality of food that we're putting in our body and realizing how the lack of quality could be impacting the things going on the inside. One of the things that my dietitian has shared with me is like our first meeting, she really didn't even want to focus on my weight. She's like, we're not focusing on your weight. We're focusing on healing your gut, because that's where everything stems from. And it was actually really refreshing. And I'm happy to be doing that. But with that said, I still got swept up in the whirlpool of thoughts. So, here to say that even if you get swept up in the whirlpool of thoughts, and even if you are really stuck in this idea that your weight is determining your overall health, it's understandable. It's okay. But there are other thoughts you can think instead that feel better and that are going to help you get past whatever obstacles are in your way. And that's another piece of this too. Okay. I mean, it's not only about the food that you're consuming, it's the thoughts you're consuming too, the things you're saying to yourself, the things you're telling yourself. This is why Fat2Fierce is a 3-prong approach, right? It is the fierce mind, fierce body, and fierce heart, right? It's not just about what we're eating, when we're eating, how we're eating. It's also about the way we're talking to ourselves, the way we're treating ourselves, the way we feel about ourselves, the way we think about ourselves, right? All of that plays such a pivotal role. And quite honestly, the diet industry ignores all of it. and has ignored all of it for a very long time because it's pushing one thing and one thing only, and that is weight loss, physical weight loss. No one talks about the mental weight loss. Goodness gracious. When I think back to losing 100 pounds back in 2013, I still had terrible thoughts about myself. What was the weight of those thoughts? Those thoughts kept me back. No, we've got to realize that it is so much more than just the number on the scale or the size of your jeans. Health is just so much more than weight. And so if you find yourself getting sucked into the thoughts, or maybe you are well steeped in all the thoughts, right, about yourself and your weight and your health, and maybe you're panicking like I was doing, okay, there are things that you can tell yourself to remind yourself, like to find a different way of thinking about this, right? And I'm going to share with you some of the things that I reminded myself of as I was waking up to this whirlpool, okay? Feel like I'm talking in word salad right now. But here are some of the reminders, okay? I already have the answers within me. I know what to do, okay? Been doing this a long time, and I have the answers within me, and I know that. Sometimes I forget that. That's okay. This was a reminder. I have the answers. So do you. May not always seem that way, but you do. Here was another reminder. I'm not just losing weight. I am healing my gut and metabolism. This might take a little bit longer. And I think that's a really hard one for those of us who have been swept up in diet culture for so long, because look at the story that we've been told. Okay. Look at the ads that we've been fed over the years, right? The idea, we don't want this to take time. This should happen quickly. We should lose 50 pounds in a month. I mean, I know I'm being ridiculous, but you get where I'm going with this, right? Oh, so and so lost 50 pounds in 6 months. I should be able to do that or better. Says who? Right? Every human body is different. Everybody's circumstances are different. We're all going to take a different amount of time. No two journeys look the same. I know that for a fact. So, again, it's the reminder that this might take time. Can I be okay with that? Yes, I can be. Because again, I'm more focused on what's happening on the inside as opposed to the outside and the number that I see on the scale right now. This isn't a quick fix. This isn't a quick fix diet, right? It's not a quick here's the thing. It's not a quick fix diet where the weight comes off, but I'm still left with a broken metabolism. I'm done with that, okay? At 50 years old, I'm healing my metabolism because I know that the years of dieting beforehand screwed it up, along with some other things too, right? But like, that's not an opportunity for me to beat myself up for dieting for years, okay? So I want to be very careful there that yes, the years of dieting have likely had an impact on my metabolism, but I don't get to beat myself up for doing that. It makes a lot of sense why I participated in the diets that I participated in. Now that I know better, I'm going to do better. Okay. So that's how that works. And then here's the other thing that I reminded myself of. Like, yes, carrying this extra weight is frustrating. And it is because my favorite pair of jeans are really freaking tight right now to the point that I can't wear them because they're uncomfortable. And so, yes, carrying extra weight is frustrating, but my body is healing. And the weight will come off when it's ready. Okay. And this is another really important piece about learning to work with your body, recognizing that, like, also, like how I used weight in the past as a shield, right? As a buffer, as protection, as a as a shield. I think I already said that. Okay. So there's a thing there, right? And I've done a lot of work on that as well through therapy and coaching. And so just recognizing that because I'm approaching this in a very different way and not just going on a medication or doing another diet plan, I'm healing from the inside out, which is, I mean, very much what Fat2Fierce is about. It's understandable that my body might take a little bit of time to release this. I haven't done this. I haven't done this part before where I'm healing my gut with the fermented foods and all the other stuff. So this is different. And it's important. It was important for me to remind myself of this. And I share that if you're feeling frustrated or impatient or any of those frustrated, overwhelmed, impatient, any of that on your particular journey, this is another great reminder. Healing doesn't always look like fat weight loss, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. Okay. Remember the stories that you've been told. Okay. And the messaging, the marketing that you've received. I mean, there are times when I think about the entire weight loss industry and all the stuff that we've seen. It's just a giant marketing machine that continues to fuel a multi-billion-dollar industry, okay? So breaking away from that is really important, and just being able to see that just because your journey doesn't look like what you're always seeing out there in this marketing machine doesn't mean what you're doing isn't working. And I just think that's really important to remember. Okay. All that said, I think that feeling good in your body is a better measure of success than the number on the scale. And I can tell you this, even though my jeans are snug, my favorite pair, not all of them are, some of them I'm fine, I can wear no problem, but my one favorite pair, they're a pair of crop jeans. I wore them in fall when it was still warm down here, and I'm excited to wear them for spring, but they are snug. Even though they are tight, I still feel really good in my body. And I think that's a testament to the quality of food that I'm eating and the fact that I am exercising more. And I mean, that could even, I'm lifting weights now. I've incorporated more strength training into my week as opposed to just doing cardio. That's another thing that's interesting. I'm just going to share this little tidbit. So back in the day, I always preferred strength training over cardio. Like I always hated cardio. Now it's like flip flop. Now I'm like, I love cardio, and like strength training is like, ugh. Perhaps that's an age thing. I don't really know. I just think it's interesting. And it's a testament to how we change and how our preferences change. So I just think that's important to keep in mind as well. Okay, listen, I'm going to wrap this up and just share some of the things that really matter, and that I will encourage you to pay attention to are your energy levels. How do they feel? Your digestion, your strength, speaking of working out, and your sustainability. I mean, even with my Christmas pounds, my holiday pounds, whatever you want to call them, even with those being here, and in the last 2 months of what has been a lot of chaos, a lot of stress, I'm talking from a news perspective, okay? With everything that's happening in the United States right now, because it's chaotic, we all know this, I have not done any stress eating. Like, that's amazing to me. I was just talking with a client this morning about that. Like, how amazing it is to be able to look at like the unprecedented breaking news that we continue to receive, and all the things that are happening that would normally be prime for stress eating, and we don't stress eat. We don't binge eat anymore. It's pretty amazing. So that's what I mean by sustainability, right? Like just continuing to eat whatever your normal is without going off the rails. Like that's pretty empowering. So that's the stuff that I believe truly matters. And I think it's really helpful and important to redefine health goals beyond weight loss. Like weight loss can absolutely be part of it. Heck, it is for me, right? But my point is that there are these other things to consider as well. Okay? So, all right. That's just me sharing some of my story of what's going on these days. I hope you have a great week. And remember, like if you are someone who has been struggling with food in your body and your weight and the diets and all the other stuff for a really long time, you're definitely not alone. And I think it was important for me to share this as well, because even as a coach who's got all these tools at my disposal and who knows how to coach herself and all this other stuff, like it still happens and it's okay. Now, I'm certainly not going to beat myself up about it. I'm just going to continue putting one foot in front of the other and moving forward, trusting myself and knowing that I'm doing this in a way that I feel really good about. And that's what matters. Okay. All right. I hope this was helpful. Don't forget to follow. Talk to you next week. Are you ready to break free from stress eating and body shaming? It's time to get fierce. Fat2Fierce is a self-paced program that helps you build a new foundation of strength and balance without the toxic dieting mindset. This non-diet approach focuses on mindful eating, body acceptance, and lasting transformation. It's time to reclaim your power and find peace with food, your body, and yourself. Visit amyenglishcc.com to get started today.